Hey gang, today I've got one I'm really super excited to share with you guys, but it is a really deep cut, so it might sort of divide the audience here. I think either you're going to be like a hardcore old school historian who's going to be super excited to learn about this, or you're going to be like, who cares, why are you even bothering us with this? It's a really deep cut. Oh, and also, by the way, before I get into it, I deserve like no credit for this one. Really, all goes to a guy named John. And if you know me, I'm not being clever, it's another John. Way back in 2009, I got an email from someone asking me if I knew anything about a rare sort of unreleased demo cut version of The Ruler's Back by Slick Rick. Of course, The Ruler's Back is one you should all know. It's a classic song off of his first album, The Great Adventures of Slick Rick. It wasn't actually a single. He had several singles. This wasn't one of them, but it's such a standout cut. Like, because it's so unique in the way it has these kind of fake horns throughout the whole thing. Plus, Slick Rick's just incredible in his style. Like, his personality comes through on that song maybe more than any of the others, and that's saying something with Slick Rick. And of course, you know, it's gone to have such a legacy. He named his whole second album The Ruler's Back. Jay-Z did a cover / remake, whatever you want to call it, on The Blueprint, or one of those albums around that time, and that was a pretty big song. So I mean, it's a classic, even though it wasn't a single. Usually the real classics are singles, not necessarily in this case. I would say The Ruler's Back is a classic, it's not a single. But anyway, so he's asking me if I know anything about this rare unreleased demo version, and you know, I'd sort of vaguely had not only about that song, but about several songs. Of course, in a few cases, like, you know, Treat Her Like a Prostitute, there's the original version that's actually on the 12-inch single. But I had heard a little bit about how there are earlier recorded versions. Actually, I know Slick Rick now is coming out with a re-release this year of The Great Adventures of Slick Rick, which apparently features several demo versions of early tracks like Mona Lisa, I think Hey Young World, but not The Ruler's Back, interestingly. So still nothing. So that's kind of where it lay. I sort of kept my eye out for it. I was certainly looking much more hardcore now since, you know, I got the email, like anytime, like digging around, any kind of reference to it. But nothing. Here, I got my little OG version of The Great Adventures of Slick Rick. This is the tape I bought way back in the 80s. Still have it. And of course, also The Ruler's Back, very memorably used on DJ Kool's first album. And not just on his album, it was a big single. The Reggae Dance. Honestly, to me, it's his best song. I know, like, Let Me Clear My Throat and all was like a big hit for DJ Kool years later. But way back in 1990, when he was so pretty under the radar and he was on independent labels, and this was his first album, The Music Ain't Loud Enough, he had a song called Reggae Dance. Makes heavy use of The Ruler's Back. And sure, plenty of, you know, you could say lots of songs have sampled The Ruler's Back, but it's like, you know, little vocal samples. They'll take a little Slick Rick line and cut it up on the chorus or something. But he was the only one to really use the horns, the signature horns, or pseudo horns, from The Ruler's Back and make use of as a major instrumental element of that song. So the Reggae Dance, to me, is just a lot of fun, a lot of classic. Sure, it's more derivative because it's blatantly using, and also because, honestly, in 1989/90, that was a little bit more unheard of to sample hip-hop records. Again, not including, sure, everybody already had sampled, like, Flavor Flav going, yeah, boy, but I mean, to take original instrumental chunks from a hip-hop record and turn it into a new hip-hop record was still pretty new, because people were still doing disco and James Brown and all that kind of stuff, and into the late 80s, like, we're just getting a little bit more innovative and getting out of that kind of stuff. So it was pretty ballsy, you know what I mean? Like, it really made an impression, like, oh, wow, I can't believe he just used that Slick Rick song. But at the same time, it sounded great. But anyway, still no sign of the demo version. I got off on a little tangent there, I do that. But back to the demo version, nothing. I kept my eyes out, nothing. All I really heard was this one guy's email and a radio rip, which he sent me, which also I think has been making rounds a little bit. I've seen that online otherwise, of that song, the original supposedly demo version. But it's a real, you know, it's a rip off a radio. The signal's not strong. You know, the quality's kind of rough. It's almost like, is it really a demo version or is this just like a bad, you know, transmission of the song? But no, I mean, it is. And anyway, I got an email from him recently, just now in 2018, and he found it. The real thing, and not, you know, legitimately, and you can actually go out and track it down yourself, because I did right after I got his email. I got a copy of it. It exists right here. A double CD, Columbia Records, Sneak Peeks. It's like a promo thing, you know, presumably for radio sessions, which is why I played it on the radio. And I see I got to listen. Interestingly, not too interesting, but just a little small point. It's in a case for a 4 CD pack, but it's only 2 CDs, and it's only supposed to be 2 CDs. And I ripped the shrink wrap off of this copy myself, so it's not like some used guy sold it to me in the wrong case. This is how it came. No big deal. Anyway, so this is all Columbia Records hits that were coming out in 1988/1989. Only a couple of them are Def Jam. It's almost all Columbia Records stuff. Only 3, and the other ones, the other Def Jams are Allison Williams and Black Flames. So this is the only rap/hip hop on here. Everything else, and it's like Bob Dylan. It's like pure, totally very far removed from hip hop. So the Ruler's Back really stands out on here. Yeah, like Jimmy Cliff, Midnight Oil, Art Garfunkel. But not only does it stand out here for being the only hip hop song on there, which is enough, but to die-hard hip hop fans, it stands out because it's a distinctly different version of The Ruler's Back. And it's not massively different. All the lyrics are the same. It's all those funky, crazy fake horns are the same. It's basically the same beat. But there are definitely differences that are really clarified, from that radio rip again. Because, one thing that's different is the drums are different. Now, the drum pattern is not different. It's not like they sampled 2 different records for the drums. But I'm going to play clips of it, and you're going to hear it. They're definitely distinctly different drums. And this is the kind of thing that could get lost in the, again, in sound quality kind of stuff. So now, finally able to hearing it pristine, CDQ, as they say, you can absolutely hear it's totally different. What's really different about it, specifically, is that this one sounds a lot more raw, a lot more natural, like these are drums, regular drums, straight drums. Whereas when you actually hear it on the Great Adventures of Slick Rick album, they have clearly been tweaked a lot. They added like a real kind of deep, echoey effect to the drums, whomp, whomp. And actually, if you listen to the first Slick Rick album, that's kind of a signature sound throughout the album. The Bomb Squad produced a lot of that album. Oh, well, that's actually another thing if we're going to talk about The Ruler's Back. I don't want to go off and do my tangents, but Bomb Squad produced half of it, Slick Rick himself produced half of it, and only one song on that album was produced by somebody else. And that is The Ruler's Back. And that's actually produced by Jam Master Jay of Run DMC. A lot of people don't necessarily know that because he uses his real name, Jason Mizell, as opposed to Jam Master Jay, so a lot of people didn't necessarily make that connection. Of course, DJ Vance Wright did the cuts and all, but Jam Master Jay produced The Ruler's Back. But anyway, so that kind of thumping, heavy-handed, ultra-produced sound is the signature sound of the album, and it sounds good, and I can understand why they sort of felt compelled to say, okay, you know what, this is a good song, we got a great here, but you know what, we can toughen it up, we can beef it up a little bit and make, bigger, larger, whomping drums, and more, less natural drums. They really sound more artificial and sort of, this is pre-digital, so it's not like computer enhanced, but it definitely sounds like they're using studio equipment to change the sound of the drums. You can make a case, I think, for either version, because now that I've had a little bit of time before making this video, I've been listening to both a lot back and forth. The drums aren't the only difference, but we'll get to the rest afterwards. What I think really makes this version stand out, even on the first listen, is it just sounds more natural. Like it sounds like a real straightforward recording, like you really empathize with Rick as a man in a booth rapping, as opposed to this kind of more produced, unnatural sonic record where it's like, this is a unique sound coming out, boom, boom, boom. So this now sounds a little bit more like a straightforward, you really kind of feel like you connect more, I think, with Rick as a rapper on that. So that is more interesting. That's also pretty cool. But there's another element, the other difference, might, in theory, I think would actually distance you more from Slick Rick as a rapper. But in fact, it doesn't really do that. And that is there's a whole lot of reverb on his voice. Like Extreme. Not quite as extreme if you think of like those early Big Daddy Kane records that Marley Marl did, like the really early ones before his first album, where it is like pure echo, and which frankly to me kind of ruins those songs. I mean, it doesn't ruin them because they're still good songs, but I think they would just be better if they left it alone. He doesn't go quite that far, but I mean, again, I'll play some vocal samples for both back and forth so you can hear it. It's distinctly, very noticeably different. They're definitely kind of going for a sound here, it definitely is not like a slight enhancement. It's not like a little bit of auto-tune to tweak somebody's voice or something. They're definitely making a different musical element to his voice.
Now this one here is called The Ruler, my dear. It's a mere party booster that'll set things clear. It's 100% proof from champions of truth, and if you feel you need spirit, I'll bring back your youth. Now this one here is called The Ruler, my dear. It's a mere party booster that'll set things clear. It's 100% proof from champions of truth, and if you feel you need spirit, I'll bring back your youth.
And at one point, in fact, I'll play a clip of this too, on the hook, there's a real echo effect. Like reverb is essentially echoes, like a sort of a slight echoey kind of sound to the voice. But on the hook, when he says the ruler's back, they really echo it out.
So up we go, let the trumpets blow, and hold on because the driver of the mission is a pro, the ruler's back. So up we go, let the trumpets blow, and hold on because the driver of the mission is a pro, the ruler's back.
Again, that's one that's really subjective. You can like it better, you can like it less. But it's kind of cool, if only for the fact that since we're finding a rare, unheard version of the ruler's back, just to have more differences to make it a little bit more significant, to make it stand out more from the album version, the one that we've grown up with. You know, like I'm thinking of when they released the early demo version of Ain't It Good To You by Ultramagnetics, and that sounded so similar that I almost had to do a video on that one just to play the differences so you could realize that there were differences. Like, I know they're saying it's different, but it sounds like the exact same thing to me. But that was more like the mix was different, like different kind of samples were brought in out at different times. This one, it's not that. It's that the sounds of the drums and the voices are just distinctly different. So anyway, I've already presumably been playing you clips. I've been going along here, so I'll just play a little bit more of the original quote-unquote demo version. It wasn't necessarily a demo, but I mean an early version on this Columbia Records sampler that, as far as I can tell, has not been released anywhere else. So, but not necessarily super hard to find, because like as soon as John, again, full credit to him, told me about this, I ran to Discogs, picked up a copy for myself. I don't see any more up there right now, but I'm sure it's around eBay and all. Because I think, basically, I mean, it's a promo thing, it's kind of rare, but unless you know about the Slick Rick alternate version, there's nothing really desirable here. All these other songs, well, as far as I don't know about this stuff like Art Garfunkel, but I assume all these songs are on their albums as is, you know, like Midnight Oil, Beds Are Burning, like, that's the same song we all know, you know, so there'd be no reason to hunt it down as a collector's item or anything like that, except for now we know. So, okay, the demo version, one last time, Slick Rick, The Ruler's Back, 1980, not 9, but 1988.
Everybody do the reggae dance. We wanna reggae dance, Rasta, Rasta. Everybody do the reggae dance. Everybody do wanna do the reggae dance. Me wanna rock Rasta style one time. You been on your thing and me gonna do mine. With the help from the man divine. We can get together and having a real good time. That me like the rock, the funky rhyme. And the words that you hear, all mine are mine. Me like the phone in the summer sunshine. And me like to sing in the song that move you behind. And me like the rock, the microphone, Rasta and style. And the music me play every day, people go wild. Daylight come and me wanna go home. Me DJ Cool on the microphone, rockin' a Rasta rubber.